Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our DSAA webinar on reimagining development through community-led innovation, lessons from the Social Innovation Eco-Village-Enduata, SIEVE in Kenya. First of all, I would like to acknowledge our traditional owners of the land on which I'm situated in James Cook University, Ngumabara campus. Those are the Yiriganji and Jibugai people. It's not my country. My name is Paul Garang. I'm a PhD candidate at James Cook University, Cairns, Queensland, Australia. My research is on building peace in South Sudan, with particular focus on the effectiveness of local and traditional peace-building mechanisms. I'm part of the executive committee of the Development Studies Association of Australia, and I'm also a student representative. Just a brief background about the DSAA. The Development Studies Association of Australia is Australia's peak development studies association body. It promotes interdisciplinary research, critical debate, and inclusive dialogue to improve development theory and practice. Our webinar series celebrates this diversity by featuring a new speaker each month, which shares the expertise on key theme in development studies. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Martin Irungu, founder of Empower and Serve Kenya, sustainability specialist and community innovation leader. It's also my pleasure to introduce to you Professor Lucy Kathuri Ogola. She's a development scholar, educator, and expert in community resource management and international collaboration. So as a global development conversation increasingly call for locally led and decolonial approaches, this webinar presents the Social Innovation Eco-Village-Enduata in Kenya as an emerging example of a community-driven model grounded in local knowledge, participation, innovation, and sustainability. Going forward, the speakers will answer questions from myself for the first half of the session, and we will then open up to questions from the audience. My first question, which we'll answer for about 3 to 5 minutes, goes to Martin. Martin, can you please start by giving us a bit of background about the Social Innovation Eco-Village in Enduata, SIEVE? What was the inspiration of this initiative? How did it come about, and how does SIEVE operate?
All right, so thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and really appreciate this opportunity to be able to share some of the key programming perspectives, and also how that relates to the shifts, especially in the global funding ecosystem, and how we are also modeling the Social Innovation Village here in Kenya. Just to set context to our audience, I do lead, I'm a founder of an organization called Empower and Serve Kenya, and also now currently envisioning and steering the Social Innovation Eco-Village project. We started up 10 years ago. This is our 10th year when we started the organization, with a goal of reaching out, especially to youth and last mile communities. And so the Social Innovation Village is founded on that background, where Empower and Serve Kenya endeavors to reach out to local communities, the last mile communities, and then just to share perspective and to answer to your question, when we started the organization, we set up our first innovation hub. Just to share context, here in Kenya, Kenya is referred to as the Silicon Savannah, basically promoting innovation, and we are known well for innovations like M-Pesa and other forms of innovations that have gone to global trends. But then when you come to Kenya, you'll find most of this is concentrated within Nairobi, which is our capital. And so when we formed the organization, our first kind of a program that we did was an exchange program on mobile app development. And this during this call, we noticed that all the applications that we received, about 90% came from Nairobi. And so we asked ourselves, what happens to the grassroots communities? It is with this background that we formed we formulated what we call a DigiLab program, which is a digital resource center set up in local communities, which was an award-winning innovation that was given a grant by the UNDP in 2018. And we modeled the DigiLab to be a last-mile connection approach, and we implemented to date, setting up digital resource centers in communities. In our 2021 new strategy, we envisioned and looking at the landscape. This is when we are now also living within COVID. The times that we were living, and as a board, we sat down and evaluated what could be our sustainability approach as an organization. And this is where we formulated an upscaling of our digital program to now form what we call the Social Innovation Eco-Village as now a landscape, which is now sitting in 14 acres of land in Kajiado, one of the counties here in Kenya, and then modeling it as a community engagement platform where we do not just design for the communities, but design with the communities themselves. So basically, the Social Innovation Village became first a flagship project for the organization, but also looking at a sustainability approach when it comes to community, but then looking at how do we make our digital program more holistic to be able to include communities, to be able to have economic empowerment, but also upscale it to become even more of a residential program as opposed to facing off the challenges that communities face, especially in the ASAL communities where they have to travel for long distances, trying to access the services that we offer. So that is the background of the SIEVE project for anyone just joining us, that it is a sustainable program. It's the first Kenya social innovation village and a smart village built on the background of the Millennium Villages that were envisioned in 2010. Just to respond to your question, and I'll be happy to clarify more. Back to you, Kwal.
Thank you, Martin. And another question is that, as you mentioned, one of the key principles of the SIEVE initiative is that it is grounded in local knowledge and community participation and leadership. Can you please tell us about how, in practical terms, SIEVE centers community knowledge, participation, and leadership?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And just to build up and just to mention, when we set up one of our DigiLab in Kajiado, it's in one of our center called Helga. It's a rescue center for young girls, and we set it up there as a transition pathway. Basically, when the young women are rescued from FGM, from arranged marriages, they stay in a rescue center for a period, probably until they are age 18. Some of them are going to school, but there emerges a challenge. And this is what was informing our modeling and where we talk about community participation. That in that transition, they are looking forward to how do we reintegrate these young women back to the communities. And so because we are having a DigiLab program as an intervention to work on transition, training on ICT skills, entrepreneurship and innovation, and also focusing on job transition, the SIEVE project was able to pick up the knowledge and the needs from the community, basically building up onto that gap. Additionally, in our formulation and when we were establishing the land, we were able to engage, first of all, with the local community. It is in the center of the Maasai community. It's quite well-versed within the Maasai land. And again, when you talk about community engagement, we started with the robust community needs assessment, engaging the local county governments, and also establishing a local project committee. And also, we also engaged some students from Kajiado University who also supported us with doing research and engaging with communities. This was the stage, first of all, to engage, to be able to understand the community, harvest the local knowledge, indigenous resources, what communities have, and also be able to collect some of the areas they would like us to include within the program. For example, during one of our community participation, the community mentioned that they would like the SIEVE project as a community center to also have a heritage center that would also be able to preserve the community heritage, tradition, and also become also as a community center. Currently, it has been registered as a community-based tourism center, which is a CBTO. Again, becoming an economic pillar within the community, but also picking up into the community participation. On the other hand, with understanding that these communities also have their own knowledge and traditional understandings, we also formed a project committee. And this project committee also informed us in terms of addressing some of the challenges. For example, the creation of an access road to the village. It was done by the community participating and also calling their leaders into action. This was done by one training done by the Forum SIEVE called the Rights Way Forward. The Rights Way Forward is where the communities are trained to be able to understand the challenges that they face and then the opportunities that they're able to take up, and also holding accountable their leadership to be able to support them. So this also has helped us to build up, again, looking into how do we leverage into this, into the community resources within the community, and also leverage into their indigenous skills and understandings that would also to build up into the project. So this put together has been enabled us, first of all, to save on cost in terms of project implementation, also be able to have community leadership. We have TOTs who are also taking up training within the communities, and also involvement of the local leadership through the community, through the administration, through the chiefs here in Kenya. They're referred as the chief and the county commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Another question, just so what type of other stakeholders and partners have been involved in the SIEVE initiative, and how have you developed these collaborations? You have talked about girls and other, what are the stakeholders?
Yeah, we have engaged quite a myriad of stakeholders. First of all, from the designing, I would say for one of the biggest pillars is the community, because the community informed us of the landscape, the challenges, and the issues that we needed to address. But also now when it comes to the actual design, we started with a lot of research. We engaged academia first, being the fact that also I'm also a scholar, and a number of us are also doing community development and other kind of learning. We were able to do a bit of a baseline assessments, community engagement methodologies, and that also helped us in designing SIEVE not just as a local project, but also as a global project that will become a center for learning and innovation. Secondly, in Kenya, we are also framed within what we call the Agenda 2030. And the Agenda 2030 in Kenya is also driven by various ministries. We were able to collaborate with the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. And also in Kenya, we also have an authority we call the Kenya National Innovation Authority that specifically focuses on establishment of innovative projects within Kenya, including communities. And so then that also became a good pillar. We did our strategic plan together with the Ministry of ICT, and this was formalized and launched in 2023. And that's also firmed up the commitment of the government of Kenya to be able to support the SIEVE projects. Additionally, we have local governments. In Kenya, they are called the county governments, who are very instrumental, especially when it comes to harnessing indigenous knowledge and also culture. Masai are also known to have very rich culture globally. And so then we also had to do a memorandum of understanding in terms of how do we leverage on this as part of our program intervention. And so that's why we have already established a cultural heritage center within the village, and also working out to set up a museum that will also be forming an economic empowerment for local communities and as collaboration. Another strong pillar for these projects, being an eco-village, is also leveraging on environmental and conservation, because we are in a national community. And so we are able to partner with Earth Allies Restoration Network, which is a global network for restoration work and restorative agriculture. And they are working with us for the next 5 years in establishing the center as a permaculture center, but also training young people from the community and making SIEVE as a permaculture center where we are able to host. Currently, we are hosting 2 interns who are promoting agroecology and permaculture practices and training group of youth within the community. Additionally, we have also been able to partner with other institutions that are focusing on economic empowerment. Setting up of an economic hub is one of the pillars that will make the project sustainable. And so I can go and on, but it is a multiple engagement and partnership making sure that the project is not just local. I will not like to forget that the project is also situated in the vicinity of Kenya's also first smart city. So it's a contrast. It's called Konza Technopolis. It's a contrast because when we talk about the Konza Technopolis is a smart city, when else we also contrasting that with a smart village. So it is interesting that we have that partnership, and later in the year, we are organizing jointly an innovation week together with the Konza Technopolis as we launch our first phase of the village. And that is basically the partnerships that we'll like to talk about.
Thank you, Martin. Now let's move to Professor Lucy. Professor Lucy, what lessons do you think policymakers and practitioners can learn from the SIEVE initiative, particularly in relation to debates about local knowledge and leadership in development?
Thank you, Carl, for that question. Let me first start by saying that as SIEVE project, we are very, very delighted to be part of the locally driven initiatives for development in Kenya. And this is a key project under MSAF, which is now celebrating its 10th year. And as I look back from when SIEVE was started and the lessons, I know that for sure it's in the spirit of the Kenyan Constitution, which actually stipulates that through the devolution to counties, then the spirit is for locally led approaches to be used in community development. With that said, for me, from the SIEVE project, I think one of the lessons is that we really need to embrace locally led development approaches, because then that will enhance sustainability of the initiatives and interventions that are taken up in the communities. For instance, like Martin has just alluded to, SIEVE has been able to engage many stakeholders, local ones, of course, and international ones, but basically the local ones, to be able to start off, to take off, to get the buy-in of the communities. And that for us was a lesson, especially like what you said about the road, about involving the local communities and ensuring that the initiative and the interventions that are run under SIEVE are actually responding to what the local community needs, to the needs of the country as well. So for me, one lesson is ensuring that we embrace locally led development approaches. Secondly, there's need to co-create and consult with the communities and local stakeholders, because then I'm a development expert, I'm a community resource management expert and practitioner as well. The belief is that every community has resources, and if you approach a community and co-create solutions, you consult them, then the likelihood of them getting maximum benefits from that initiative, as well as ensuring that the initiative is sustainable and is meaningful and very intentional for the community, then that will be achieved through co-creation and consultation with the community. And then the other lesson from SIEVE that we learn is that when you're doing development interventions and initiatives, that we would rather look in terms of an ecosystem rather than a standalone intervention. Like SIEVE has benefited from that kind of perspective, because then through connecting with different systems within its ecosystem, then it has been able to drive the change that we have realized so far, so that then we believe that SIEVE is not in a vacuum, it's not a silo. Then it is in this system, particular ecosystem where it's working in, then it's able to build on what is there, as well as to inform other development agendas and ideas as it drives its mandate. That's the third, and I think the fourth is the importance of diversifying financing approaches to the community projects, so that we have trust-based funding, so that then we are able to not rely on only one source of funding, but then we diversify the financing options. I think that model is one of the other lessons we learned from SIEVE. And then overall, of all what SIEVE is doing is adopting a bottom-up approach in program designs. Martin has talked about us having done a needs assessment and continuously keeping in touch with the community where SIEVE is working, and of course the larger Kenyan community, and not forgetting the international community, so that then we have as building our interventions and initiatives from the bottom up as opposed to the top-bottom approach. Thank you, Cole. Those are the lessons.
Thank you, Professor Lucy. Now let's go back to Martin. Martin, another key aspect of CF is exploring and developing alternative and sustainable financing approaches and reducing dependence on traditional donor system. Can you please tell us a bit more about how you are exploring and developing alternative and sustainable funding system through the CF initiative?
Yeah, thank you, Cole. And just to mention to the audience, this is a very interesting question for me. I sit in the Charter for Change chapter Kenya, currently leading localization agenda. And this is why we met with Dr. Ann. And so our biggest agenda in the past 2 years or 3 years has actually been looking at alternative financing as a reset response. Of course, we then awake with a changing donor landscape. And so other than just saying, I think one of the things we have done is also practicing it and through SIEVE. This is what we have been trying to do. First of all, as a local organization, we believe that we should be able to be sustainable and also provide value. And noting, as everyone would see in the changing landscape, like what happened a few years ago, a few months ago now, that when there is a shift in the funding, then there is need for organizations to be ready. And so this is what has also inspired us towards being a bit critical in terms of how we resource and also creating the SIEVE project. It's also as a lesson that would also be informed other organizations locally as we even proceed with the implementation. First of all, we started by raising resources ourselves to be able to acquire land. We did our own resource mobilization within the organization, within the board, raising resources that would be able to secure sufficient land for the project. That is 14 acres of land in Kajiado. And additionally, we also engage the community so that they understand the value of the project, so that they were able to kind of subsidize and be able to give the land also in trust, while again, we were also able to contribute and ensure ownership of the project, of the land by the project, of course, because of sustainability. Additionally, we also mapped the resources available within the communities. We have a lot of quarries. For example, this area is a place where we have a lot of harvesting of stones, and we have a number of industries that are currently working on making cladding stones. They are also working on making of tiles. So we visited most of these companies. We started to our collection points for wastes from these companies, the cladding stone companies, the tile companies, and also the land, the remains of the excavation from the various quarry sites. So we already have that, and we started to collect that and gathering it within our village as a way of demonstrating sustainability, use of local materials. We also have some very nice stones. We did a bit of a mapping of construction option with Arizona State University, who are researchers, and they helped us to really look at what are the construction options. And we were also able to identify some very nice stones within the land, just waste stones, and we already engaged youth to start gathering that up. So that the adoption of those practices also, first of all, helped us in raising local materials for construction, but also helping us to cut on costs and also become a learning spot for the communities. Additionally, we also opened up a crowdfunding platform on global giving, and anyone here joining us today would also be able to look at help build the Social Innovation Village in Kenya. It's an open crowdfunding on global giving. And maybe even one of our team members can actually share the link within the Zoom. That also has helped us, first of all, to raise some resources online, but most of the people also coming offline and reaching out to us, supporting us in kind, and helping us to accomplish what we have managed so far. Additionally, we were also able to partner with one of the big needs that we have for the project is water. And we really needed to raise up to 25,000 USD for us to be able to drill water in the village. I would be happy to report that we were able to partner with one of our other non-profit organization working in the same area called World Serve International, and they have been able to commit and support us towards our water project within the site. That again demonstrates partnership, but also just a way of raising resources through understanding that as local organizations, we can also collaborate and share resources, and that helps us to remain sustainable. When we finished to build one of our resource center, we did an online fundraiser to be able to establish our solar system, because this is an off-grid village, it's an eco-village, and we were able to raise some computers in kind, people just donating some computers online. And again, that also helped us to now install our first computer resource center with 20 computers. And we have been able to train now currently, at least we have a cohort of 20 young people going through digital skills in the village, and also supporting 3 schools with a population of over 1,000 who had never accessed digital skills in their lifetime. And so that is life-changing. But then again, we used the simple methodologies and approaches that would help us to be able to sustain that. Amidst that, we have also been able to get some of the in-kind support. For example, we got an internet booster through one foundation in the UK called the Jangala Foundation, who donates internet boosters to last mile communities. And so we just installed it last week, and it is working to spreading the signals within the village, being this a community, a last mile community. So those are some of the approaches that we have taken, and we are now looking towards setting up our economic hub. First of all, we have the apiary. We are setting up an apiary hosting of 150 hives, working on a value chain that we should be able to work with community members, being able to set up their hives, and then the SIEVE projects becomes the aggregation center. That also becomes an economic. So one of the big way that we're also working towards is to ensure that we'll be able to also generate income through the community-based tourism, through our value chains in leather, textile, and beadwork, and also our farm and agroecology practices that should be able to promote sustainability. These are the approaches. Looking at the private sector, fundraising within communities, volunteerism, working with volunteers and researchers, and also partnership with other local organizations as an approach to alternative funding, the private sector also who are coming in handy to be able to support our innovations and our approaches in the village. And definitely now we are planning to open up officially our phase 1 of the project later this year. Those are some of the highlights, Kual, and taking it back to you.
Thank you, Martin. Now let's go back to Professor Lucy. This focus on alternative funding system is obviously very important for the future of development work. both within the Kenyan context, but also at international level. What do you feel that the SIEVE initiative can teach policymakers, practitioners, and academics in terms of the future of developing financing?
Thank you, Cole, for that question. For me, I believe that SIEVE can teach policymakers and development practitioners that actually alternative funding works and that it's an important component of initiatives that are locally driven to ensure then that there's no one single financing model being used, so that then we seek alternative funding, trust-based funding as well, so that then initiatives are felt impactful and also at the community level, and then the sustainability is ensured. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you. Another question following that is, as an academic, this is also goes to Professor Lucy. As an academic, how have you been involved in the SIEVE initiative?
I think my role as an academic in SIEVE has been three-pronged mainly. Let me say that first has been my research contribution to the SIEVE project as a hub for innovation. Then I've been able to connect with the hub in that from the time of initiation. You see, also to be able to connect with the communities, Carl, we had to also look at what the needs are. A needs assessment is basically about research, as well as now when informing the research arm, like when the DG labs were being started, what skills are necessary, ensuring that then we've done some evidence-based kind of research to ensure that we are responding to what is necessary for that particular community, and the hub then is responding to needs. And then the courses there or the skills that are being considered for the hub are also relevant and to the community and to the participants. Then beyond the needs assessment and the DG Lab, there's also research that is being done. It was mentioned earlier by Martin that also we are looking at environment. So what kind of agri enterprises and responsive environmental initiatives are being done. Then research has to be done because also it's an arid area, the location of the hub. So then there's research so that then we have climate responsive agriculture being done there. Then the other research, if I may say so, the hub is like a living test for us, a living lab for us to test community-driven initiatives. So essentially, my role is to ensure that we find out what is needed, what the hub needs to respond to, and how then are we monitoring and collecting evidence to inform the continuity of the hub, but also to inform other policymakers and other practitioners undertaking initiatives like ourselves. The second role is being an advisory role, and I consider myself an ambassador for the SIEVE project. In the networks, then when we go for forums, we participated in several forums with Martin, and where I go then on my own, then I give advisory to the project, but also the ambassador. And finally, I've assisted in fundraising and ensuring that the SIEVE project gains feasibility within the networks that I am in.
Thank you. Last question. For you, Professor Lucy, this is going to be our last question, and then we'll go into the next stage of our webinar. Now, we have heard from the presentation, this current presentation, that the SIEVE initiative is clearly based on a collaborative approach, including partnerships between academia and development practitioners. So what do you think this initiative can teach us about these types of partnership between academia and development practitioners?
very good question, Kobe. It actually resonates with the current role I play at the University of International Relationships and Collaborations, which does focus on partnerships. But let me start by saying this: partnerships, basically about relationships. And for me, from the SIEVE project, I have seen us take a very collaborative approach and ensuring that we build the right relationships from community level going to other levels, national, county, including international, because then we believe as SIEVE that the partnerships will be good to be able to drive the agenda of the hub. But now back to academia and practice. Because it's a community-driven initiative, then there's a clear link between academia and practice, because we need to co-create knowledge rather than just transferring. If I may give an example, here in community resource management at Kenyatta University, we prepare our students to work with communities. What SIEVE has done, has offered our students here, I think some students, 3 or so, have taken their practicum, their internship at SIEVE. So that then this shows a good co-creation of knowledge between what we academia are doing and what is actually happening in the real world of work, the practitioners, so that we can be able then to jointly identify problems, design solutions, generate evidence. And as Martin has said, part of the stakeholders is academia, which is very, very important in informing the design of the problem, identify the problem, rather designing solutions, and of course generating evidence. Like I've said, I've been involved in the research to generate evidence. Then it's important for the link between partnership between academia and development practitioners, so that then we are able to bridge the theory and the practice, so that also through testing research findings in real community settings. Like the hub gives really a very good community setting where then locally led development is taking place for the benefit of the community and to inform other similar initiatives. So then by this, we are able to refine lived experiences so that we are connecting theory and practice very well. Then I also see through SIEVE the partnership of academia and development practitioners, because then the hub is able to foster innovative ecosystems where we find different stakeholders, different partners, universities, communities, civil society, government, both national and local, and private sector then come together to address these complex development challenges, which are being addressed by the hub. I think for me, those are the 5 key areas I see partnership between academia, development partners. Thank you, Cole, for the question.
Thank you so much, Professor Lucy. Now we have come to the next stage of our webinar. It's a Q&A time. If you would like to ask a question, please, the 2 options, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you're not really into that, you can write your question down in the chat box and I will read out your question. And I just mentioned to whom your question is going to. You're welcome. Anyone? If you want me to call out your name as well for the question, you can put your name down or you can raise your hand. And yes.
Thank you,
Anna.
Cole.
And sorry.
Thank you so much, Martin and Professor Lucy, for a really, really interesting outline of this project and for sharing all your experiences and insights. So it seems that you've got a really successful project here. And I was going to sort of flip the picture a little bit and ask you about what kinds of pushback or barriers or challenges you might have encountered along the way and how you've actually been navigating them. This is a question for both of you because I imagine that you're coming at this project from quite different perspectives and therefore you might be dealing with these in different ways. So over to you.
All right, so I think I will take up the first shot. And yes, I was looking forward for the opportunity to also share that it's not all rosy, and this is community development. I did not mention that Professor has been my teacher since my undergraduate, and so every time I'm out there, I will always go back, and probably one day I will become a professor. Not so sure. But in the community development work, basically, maybe an honorarium degree. But I just want to say that it's not as easy, maybe as said, but then because in community development, we say every lesson, every challenge is a lesson, every challenge is an opportunity. Otherwise, we could not be doing community development. We will close the course. And so we first of all, I would actually go back and say, first of all, it's in terms of managing communities. It's basically one of the significant challenges that you always face. You are dealing with indigenous communities. They have had their own historical injustices, challenges. They will take time to trust, and this is what you are building. And basically, that's what one of the things I would say. If you come to the village, you may not see all developed village, but you will see progress. And so you take time engaging them, making them learn, understand. They are also trying, as a local organization, they also don't understand. They have worked with these big organizations that will come. They have all these stipends. They have all these resources. They have all these monies to take home. But you are here, you're asking them for contribution. It becomes a paradox, and they are not really understanding you. So you have to take time for them trying to understand. Yes, you are an NGO, you are an organization, you are coming here, we expect you to support us. So the dependency syndrome is part of the community challenges that you will always face. And so one of the biggest challenges is, of course, the issue of dealing with the community. That's why we started off even doing the right way forward training methodology in community approach, which is trying to empower them to understand their role in community development, and also how do they also come in. And also that is work ongoing. Last week, we were in the community, and we are working towards enhancing our road there, and they have been called by the chief. Still, you see the understanding is not sunk. They're still there trying to figure out, can we get something out of our volunteer work to create the road. So that continues. Additionally, you also find some form of political differences within the space, where the leadership may not be well aligned. In Kenya is a politically divided country. So when you are going to this leader, the other one will think you are also, you want to take mostly for politicians in Kenya, they always look at any project as a mileage, maybe for them to be known better. So separating that, our projects, involving them, yet separating ourselves from the projects is also significantly challenging. And we still say this is work in progress. I would not also hesitate to say, as much as we are in this, we have, as a local organization, you are deep diving into resourcing. The overall cost of the project is around 500,000 USD in full implementation. And so that means it's quite a very significant project resourcing, but then it is spread over time. And it is faced in a way that we should be able to have impact at every level and every stage. So I would also mention that raising resources in these alternative ways is also not very, very easy. But then we keep on trying to get ambassadors, people who can speak about our project out there, people who can pick the link that has just been shared in our chat, share with one or two friends and ask them, please support this project in Kenya. And that basically what has been happening. So I would say that those could be the bigger pointers for us in terms of navigating communities, resourcing, but also the geopolitics of the communities.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is from Johan Muruthi. I've just seen you raise your hand. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you very much. First, I want to commend the MSAV team in its entirety. Martin, having been one of my students, I'm really proud of you. and Professor Lucy, my colleague. As an academician, we are often interested not only in whether a model works, but also whether it can be rigorously evaluated and replicated elsewhere. So my question to Martin is, how will you ensure that you have appropriate monitoring frameworks, and which learning mechanisms will you employ to assess the effectiveness of the SIEVE model? And once you have these findings, can they be replicated elsewhere in Kenya and even in the wider African region? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daktari. I appreciate, and yeah, I see like I will need to also have you as one of monitoring advisor. But yes, I will answer the question by first for mentioning we have very clear intentionality in terms of data. We did initial baseline assessment, and also picked up also both I would say physical and also data kind of management methodologies to be able to speak both to impact, but that is, and also the change. For example, we are doing a very specific mapping and also like documentation of the landscape. It was quite bare when we went there. There's a lot of restoration work that is taking place, and we want that to be documented over years. It's also something that we'll be able to learn. I've seen like now we already be able to generate hay within the land, and it was quite bare, it was quite exposed. And secondly, with now the specific data collection that informs both at household level, but also at the economic, like just looking at the impact approaches within the village itself. So, and I would actually mention, this is one of the area, and if you are here and you are listening to us, this is one of the area that we have not really been able to do quite well in terms of ensuring that we engage and we have a very clear data sets and something that we're able to measure quite strongly, but we have been able to pick up a baseline data and continuous data that would inform us, including an environment audit that we did that would also help us to demonstrate restoration over time. But then let me speak about replication. SIEVE has been modeled as a replication, as a project that will be able to replicate in Kenya and also across Africa. During the design, we did it together with the United Peoples Sustainability Program, which is a program that brings total different global leaders. In Africa, we were 7 of us. And so we were able to contribute to the design. And we are focusing in a point where we should be able to have such model being able to be replicated in another country, but also address another different challenge. So the framing should be, for example, here in Kajiado, we are talking about gender-based violence. We are talking about the retrogressive culture. We are speaking about also picking up on key resources, like also culture becomes also a resource. But then in another context, it could be about blue economy. It could also be addressing issues to do with food waste or any other form of challenges. So the way it's modeled, it should be able to build communities. So currently, I would also like to mention, in Kenya, we are already establishing 2 SIEVE communities in different regions. One in the northeastern Turkana area, another one in the Rift Valley, which is just picking a center and then adopting some of our practices, but you become part of the bigger SIEVE community. That is when we speak about replication. And of course, again, connecting with our DigiLab, the small community centers, they would still be feeding into the big SIEVE project as part of our bigger community. And that's how we envision that even young learners, young community developers that would like to pick up the lessons we are putting together, set up a smaller community center that would still leverage on the SIEVE ecosystem. Yeah.
Professor Lucy, would you like to add something on that?
Let me first add and respond to what Anne asked about some of the challenges. One challenge is culture and gender. Some of the local traditions sometimes can limit female participation, and those are some of the challenges we have to deal with. And of course, the location of the hub being a arid area then, the water, the climate, the water availability is also a challenge, but I know that was is being handled. And Martin said all the other challenges. But now to respond to what Joanne has said, I think it's important that we as SIEVE are positioning ourselves as, like I said, a lived experience kind of hub, so that then we are able to be able to replicate in other areas, not just in Kenya, but in other African contexts, so that then we are not saying that the initiative is closed to that particular location and time. A lot of what we shall learn, because as Martin said, we are thinking of how to collect the data sets to ensure that we have enough information to inform not only policy but practice. Then we'll be able to share our experiences and see how we can be a role model and also hold other people, like-minded people like us, to have similar initiative for replication. Thank you.
Thank you. There are questions here in the chat, and I feel like you have answered a few, some part of those, but I'll read them out to you if there's part that needs to be really answered well. So these questions are from Elijah. The first one goes to Professor Lucy. How can university play a more active role in generating evidence and supporting the scale-up community-led innovation models like SIEVE to influence policy and development practice? The other one goes to Martin. It says, based on the lessons learned from SIEVE in Enduata, what are the key factors that must be in place for this community-led innovation model to be successfully replicated and sustained in other counties across Kenya? First, Professor Lucy, and then followed by Martin.
Thank you, Cole, and thank you, Elijah, for that question. For me, I see the universities playing a very active role in generating evidence. One, because then the universities, we need to really have connection with the development practitioners. Without that, then we will still remain as a silo where we are just producing graduates to go and work in communities, and you're not also being able to respond to the needs of the communities if we don't connect with the development. So for me, the development arena, I think then for us, the university must participate, just like the way this SIEVE is connecting the development and the academia. We need to actually participate in these initiatives like SIEVE, so that we are able to support either in research, in advisory, in connecting our theory to the practice, so that then we are able to participate in generation of evidence. And you see, universities participate in generation of evidence, it will be quite impactful, because then we'll be having this connection of this is what practitioners doing, this is what academia is doing, and then we have then connect what we are producing at university, and it is going to work in the industry, in the development context. Otherwise, then if universities are left behind, then we'll not be able to influence policy and the development practice, yet we are the ones who are developing the labor force, the youth, to be able to contribute in the development ecosystem. So for me, I think we need to actively participate, work with development practitioners, projects like SIEVE, which are working with communities and play a role in gathering information, supporting the development of solutions, so then we are able to inform policy and practice. Thank you.
Martin.
Yeah, let me come in and say, yeah, I've also seen one message that came directly to me. I think I just checked, the person is called Brown. And Brown is talking about community ownership and how we ensure that the project is owned up by the community. And I would say that has been one of the biggest interests. The good thing is that we have been working with the community for now since our inception. That is from 2016. And so we had already engaged, understood some of the challenges that they are going through, and now again modeled together. And as we mentioned, we did quite a number of community engagement forums. Even at the inception, we stayed for a whole year without any kind of work already taking place. We did even the designing. We even went with our architect to the ground and listened to just them talking about what they would like to see in the projects. But then when we talk about community management and expectation, it is a continuous work. You will never finish this assignment. For the teachers of the development, when you talk about community approaches, community-based approaches, and community participatory approaches, they only evolve. They evolve every time. You keep on they keep on changing. So we would still continue even by the time the project is fully fledged. That technically we still need to engage for them to continue on the project. We have also formed, as part of the community ownership, we have what we call, I mentioned earlier, the CBTO, community-based tourism, a kind of a group. That is a group of youth, women, and older people. For example, the women gathered up and they built one of the manyata, the traditional house in the village, and they are so happy every time they will come. And one of the things that happens when you build that house, in the Maasai house, you have to make sure that you lit fire in it, and that's one of the way it's protected from termite. So they will always come and ask, have you lit fire in the last 1 week? And then one of them will even come in and lit fire in the small house. But then they also teach them. Then when you start doing the conventional houses now, where we use hay, and then we are mixing it with soil and doing another building. They are also part of the process. Then we are teaching them, how can you build a better house, not using so much so much deforestation. That is a bit ownership. The other question about replication is where we talk about SIEVE as being anchored within the Kenya National Innovation Authority. It has been flagged as Kenya's first innovation village, and technically a millennium or a smart village. So we have a framework that this ought to be replicated in different counties in Kenya and also beyond the country. So it will be of essence, and it's also open. We are doing an innovation week this year. Later in the year, we'll have the ministry, the permanent secretary coming into the village just to see the progress and launching our phase 1. And it's also an opportunity for innovators, community developers to come and learn, and we'll share the learnings and experiences for our first phase, even as we look forward to implementing the rest of the 2 phases that we'll be doing in the next 3 to 4 years. So thank you, and back to you, Kwal.
Thank you, Martin. The questions here for both of you. One is from Samuel Mwangi. It says, talking of needs assessment, how do you prioritize the competing needs? The other question is from Joe Kibati. She says, good discussion, Professor, the team, Martin. How do we involve the community in taking care of the environment, especially tree planting?
All right. So again, I will respond and then I'll give it up to Professor. We'll mention that I'll start with the last question. Conservation. We are actually making SIEVE a center for conservation. We are doing a lot of indigenous trees. Currently, you will visit the village and you will see quite a significant, diverse types of trees. I'm not the specialist in that. We have an agroecologist on site. I would encourage anyone who is in Kenya and you want to visit, please just plug me up. I have seen the socials have been shared. Just book up and let's go and build the village. And we will also be able to meet our agroecology team, the permaculture specialists, and the people who are working on restoration in terms of, and we also organize community tree planting time. We have also picked up the schools around and reserved some piece of land where we are doing tree growing with the learners in those schools as part of engaging communities and that kind of engagement. So that also becomes part of restoration work. The question on needs assessment, technically the needs are insatiable. Basically, they only change priority based on where you are seated. But of course, we have the framework of the projects. Like, where do we start? Like, we picked up the agriculture and as one of the critical needs. One of the needs that we picked is land in the Maasai land is now being fragmented, and they were used to traditional, pastoralism. So one of the biggest needs that we picked up is we need to create demonstration for alternative ways of, rearing cattle, an alternative way of breeding, alternative ways of doing agriculture, and response. So those are some of the things that we picked up, but also addressing the critical cultural barriers, including access to education, access to economic empowerment opportunities. And so we have a myriad of interventions, but then they have been weighed in and then they are putting into the strategy. We have a master plan for the project, which again, I would like maybe one of us to check it up and also share it within this group, so that anyone can see it's a big intervention, but then we pick up a need, an intervention, and then we put it up in the framework of the bigger strategic plan for the growth of the project.
Yeah, Professor Lucy, your turn, and then we will wrap up the discussion.
Okay, for me, I'll just respond to the question by Samuel about the competing needs. As Martin has said, the needs are many and they keep evolving. But for us, then based on the framework that we are using, we're able to rank based on first urgency and impact. What was very, very impactful for the community, we selected, as Martin has said. But also what we are doing is phased implementation, so that then we are doing the must-haves and then we roll out to the other phases as capacity and funding grows. So and then most critically is having community forums to discuss the needs. That was very, very critical for us, a participatory approach. So that's what the SIEVE project has used. Thank you very much, Cole.
Thank you, Martin Irungu and Professor